You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 89, Your Vocabulary Affects How You Age. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I'm so happy you're here today. Thanks for being you and for being awesome. How is March treating you so far? I hope everything is great. How are your beautiful eyes? Have you thought of a few ways to protect them and give them every chance to keep functioning optimally as you get older? What did you think about the Bates method? Kind of weird, but kind of interesting. I think it's cool that we have the ability to affect how well we see without the use of glasses. Options are good. Today, we're going to talk about your vocabulary, not just how many words you know, though having a more nuanced descriptive word is sometimes useful, but the words you choose to use when talking to yourself and to other people about your experiences of life. We all tend to think that we just describe the facts of reality. Roses are red, violets are blue, coffee is bitter, and so are you. But the way we think about and describe our reality co-creates it. Also, the vocabulary we select, the words we choose, matter. I think I mentioned Harvard researcher Dr. Ellen Langer like every other episode. I need to start the Ellen Langer fan club. We can get together and discuss her research, put posters of her up in our bedrooms, send her 100 messages a day asking for autographed copies of her books, commission an action figure to be made, maybe send her a cake we baked with our hair inside. You know, the usual. That hair thing happened to Ed Sheeran. I was pretty surprised that he would just eat a cake he got in the mail that was baked by an unknown fan. He probably doesn't do that anymore. Ellen Langer is someone referred to as the mother of mindfulness, and she's 75. So I'd be interested to know what a mindfulness expert professor of psychology would do if they had an obsessive fan stalking them. It could be really instructive. I'm not quite curious enough to be the one to do it. Although I've always wanted to write someone a note made of letters cut up out of magazines, Someday. Okay, so Ellen Langer did a study where she randomized a single group of people to get one of two crossword puzzles. One group did a regular crossword puzzle. The other group did a crossword puzzle featuring words associated with old age. When they were done, she secretly timed how long it took each of them to walk from her lab to the elevator. The ones who had all the old age words in their puzzle walked significantly slower than those not primed with old age words. That's crazy. The words we prime ourselves with, even unconsciously or subconsciously, I guess that would be, affect us. They affect how we behave and how we experience the world. One of my favorite Ellen Langer quotes is, "Placebos often come in the form of a single word that captures a richer mindset." So cool. She's the best, I'm telling you. And her experiments are so creative. I think that's my favorite part. She has one where people's vision significantly improves. They actually see the eye chart more clearly when they're in a flight simulator wearing a fighter pilot's uniform. And one where random people judged pictures of her research subjects as 10 to 20 years younger in the after picture than in the before picture because of the way they talked during the experiment. In her new awesome book, Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown says, "We have compelling research that shows that language does more than just communicate emotion. It can actually shape what we're feeling. Our understanding of our own and others' emotions is shaped by how we perceive, categorize, and describe emotional experiences, and that these interpretations rely heavily on language. When we don't understand how our emotions shape our thoughts and decisions, we become disembodied from our own experiences and disconnected from each other." End quote. Our vocabulary or language doesn't just communicate what we're experiencing, it can actually shape what we're feeling. It's not merely a description, but the words we choose co-create the reality of our experience. In my Heroic Coach program, my teacher Brian Johnson makes sure we all know Harvard Business School researcher Allison Wood Brooks's findings that show that the best way to dominate a stressful situation is to feel all of the same sensations of anxiety in our body, the rapid heart rate, shallow breathing, racing thoughts, etc., and to label them not as nervousness or anxiety, but as excitement. Same feeling, different vocabulary word. It's a catchphrase we use amongst each other that I love. If one of us says, "Oh, I'm excited," we all know that that really means that they're nervous. Usually. It's awesome. Allison brought people into her lab and made them give an impromptu speech in front of panels of judges. She instructed half of them to address their nerves by saying to themselves over and over, "I am calm. I am calm. I am calm," before their speech. The other half were instructed to say, "I'm excited," before their speech. The "I'm excited" people did way better on their speeches because they chose a label that accurately described how they were physically feeling, and it had a positive connotation. The "I am calm" people didn't really feel calm. Lying to themselves might have heightened their sense of anxiety. It's cool because understanding ourselves and having a broader vocabulary to reframe but still honestly and accurately describe our reality creates a different experience and a different outcome. As you move into your 40s or 50s or whatever life stage you're in right now, the words you choose to describe your reality co-create your experience and your outcome. What do you want your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s to be like? Are you regularly using words that match up with that desired outcome? You are co-creating your reality, so you might as well do it intentionally. I think there's value to having words that more accurately describe our experience of life. I have a dictionary of emotions because I think words are fun and useful. I would never think to describe myself as feeling truculent or surly or nihilistic or mercurial without having a book of options to choose from, or even common words that just aren't a go-to like peppy or glum. I think it makes for a richer experience to have the ability to appreciate the nuances of experiences. I love the Wheel of Emotions. Have you seen it? There are a few different versions. You can Google it or look at feelingswheel.com. It's helpful because it has the main feeling family word in the middle, like sad, and then it fans out to more specifics like lonely, and that fans out to more specifics like abandoned versus isolated. There are layers to our experience, and I think understanding them matters. I talk a lot about wanting to help you add years to your life and life to your years. That means a lot of things, and I'd love to help you create a future where you have all the energy you want and you aren't stuck on a bunch of prescription medications. But part of that more life in your years bit is also your felt experience. If you aren't self-aware or present in your life as it unfolds, are you really living? Are you embracing the full human experience and using it to become more of who you want to be? Are you able to help others? When I was listening to the book Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown, which, quick tangent, the audiobook is so good because she reads it to you like you're her friend. She'll stop and say stuff like you're having a conversation. It's by far the most personal audiobook I've ever listened to. But the physical book is gorgeous and printed on heavy paper and has tons of pictures and cartoons and illustrations. I'm super impressed with both. So I was listening along and I was shocked when I heard her say this in the book. 15 years ago, when we first introduced a curriculum based on my shame resilience research, we asked participants in the training workshop to list all of the emotions they could recognize and name as they were experiencing them. Over the course of 5 years, we collected these surveys from over 7,000 people. The average number of emotions named across the surveys was 3. The emotions were happy, sad, and angry, end quote. Oh my gosh. I mean, I know I'm weird and most people don't regularly look through a dictionary of emotions, but 3? Holy cow. I just kept thinking, if the expanse of human experience can be named with only 3 emotions, then what does it mean to be human? We know we're all motivated by the desire to feel a certain way. If we only have 3 choices, what's the point? Can we have the rich, meaningful, courageous, energetic, hopeful, loving, wise experience of life that we want as we age if we can't describe and don't understand what it means to be alive? Brené captures this so well with this quote from Ludwig Wittgenstein. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. In this same book, Bernays says, language is a portal to meaning-making, connection, healing, learning, and self-awareness. Having access to the right words can open up entire universes. When we don't have the language to talk about what we're experiencing, our ability to make sense of what's happening and share it with others is severely limited. Without accurate language, we struggle to get the help we need. We don't always regulate or manage our emotions and experiences in a way that allows us to move through them productively, and our self-awareness is diminished. Language shows us that naming an experience doesn't give the experience more power. It gives us the power of understanding and meaning. End quote. Being able to label our experiences helps us to know what to do next. If my heart is racing and my palms are sweaty and my mouth is dry and I label it excitement, I know what to do next. If I can correctly distinguish whether I feel shame versus embarrassment versus humiliation, I know what to do next. Bernays gives really good descriptions of the differences between those in her book. They're not the same. Understanding these things gives us more self-awareness and the ability to more meaningfully connect with and support other people. Most people will do anything to avoid feeling bad. They'll deny, hide, play small, cheat themselves or their full potential, let people down, pretend to be someone they're not, do drugs, spend too much, eat too much, whatever. We all do it to some degree. We want to pass on the intensity and kind of whitewash or maybe gray wash what's happening. But I think understanding ourselves better really does help us more productively move through these experiences that add up to equal our life. Brené Brown says, there's nothing more limiting than tapping out of tension and oversimplifying the thoughts and feelings that have the power to help us understand who we are and what we need. I love that. It might be tempting to pass on trying to really figure out what's going on, but it seriously limits our ability to grow into who we want to become. If you want to get better with age, it's worth your time to expand your vocabulary or ability to describe and make meaning out of your reality. While we're talking about naming emotions, here's a quick recap of how Bernays organizes them in her book. If you're interested in learning more about the subtle and not so subtle differences between them, I highly recommend her book. I learned a lot from it. Like sympathy and empathy are very different. Envy and jealousy are different, and most of us use those words incorrectly. Admiration is different from adoration. Awe and wonder are different felt experiences. And I learned about Schadenfreude and Freudenfreude for the first time. Maybe you already know about those. Apparently the word Schadenfreude was somewhat common after World War II, but then became unknown and didn't make a comeback until Lisa explained it to Homer on a 1991 episode of The Simpsons, and now it's way more well known. Okay, just for fun, here's a quick recap of the 13 emotion families in the book Atlas of the Heart, just to get your vocabulary seeds planted to enrich your experiences. 1. Places we go when things are uncertain or too much. Stress, overwhelm, anxiety, worry, avoidance, excitement, dread, fear, and vulnerability. 2. Places we go when we compare. Comparison, admiration, reverence, envy, jealousy, resentment, Schadenfreude, and Freudenfreude. 3. Places we go when things don't go as planned. Boredom, disappointment, expectations, regret, discouragement, resignation, and frustration. 4. Places we go when it's beyond us. Awe, wonder, confusion, curiosity, interest, and surprise. Are you noticing what might be the subtle differences between these? 5. Places we go when things aren't what they seem. Amusement, bittersweetness, nostalgia, cognitive dissonance, paradox, irony, and sarcasm. 6. Places we go when we're hurting. Anguish, hopelessness, despair, sadness, and grief. 7. Places we go with others. Compassion, pity, empathy, sympathy, boundaries, and comparative suffering. 8. Places we go when we fall short. Shame, self-compassion, perfectionism, guilt, humiliation, and embarrassment. Can you see how these are different from one another? 9. Places we go when we search for connection. Belonging, fitting in, connection, disconnection, insecurity, invisibility, and loneliness. 10. Places we go when our heart is open. Love, lovelessness, heartbreak, trust, self-trust, betrayal, defensiveness, flooding, and hurt. 11. Places we go when life is good. joy, happiness, calm, contentment, gratitude, foreboding joy, relief, and tranquility. Hey, have you ever thought about buying an Oura ring? If you have, then you know that you can track your activity, recovery, and sleep with a light and unobtrusive ring that looks like a normal ring. I've had mine for almost 3 years and I absolutely love it. I check my numbers every single day and it helps me make better decisions. You can see real metrics that show the detrimental effects of eating too late or working out too hard too often, and the beneficial effects of balanced activity and turning off screens before bed. If you're a curious person who wants to see how much deep sleep you got, which is critical for muscle building, the Oura Ring can tell you whether you get the 75 to 90 plus minutes that you need for that. If you want to see if you got enough REM for emotional resilience, memory consolidation, and neurotransmitter production, your Oura Ring can tell you whether you got the 2+ hours that you need for that. I pay special attention to my HRV, which shows me how stressed my body is, and I always check my steps every day to make sure I've gotten enough non-exercise movement throughout the day. You can quickly check your heart rate, track your cycle. It connects the dots and knows why your basal body temperature increases for a day or two and uses that to predict your next period start date. You can see your sleep efficiency, which is a high leverage thing you can optimize for, and tag for things you might want to track like caffeine, fasting, sauna, melatonin, headaches, whatever. And it gives you monthly and quarterly reports. If getting more health data from an easy wearable has been on your mind, now might be the time to act. I have a link in the show notes that will get you $50 off. They make it super easy to find your perfect size and get started right away. Okay, back to the episode. 12 places we go when we feel wronged. Anger, contempt, disgust, dehumanization, hate, and self-righteousness. 13 places we go to self-assess. Pride, hubris, and humility. Whew, that was kind of long, so thanks for indulging me in that. Not that you had a choice, but I hope it was worth listening to a few examples of the different emotions that make us human people. We're so much more than happy, sad, and angry. There's a high-performance coach named Steve Chandler who has written over 30 books. I've actually been on a couple of live Zoom calls with him and a bunch of other heroic coaches before. He's a really cool guy. He says, I began keeping notebooks filled with the language of high achievers, who I labeled owners, and another bulging pile of notebooks filled with the language of the people who were frustrated and struggling. I called them victims. Owners used the words, I can, a lot, while victims favored, I can't. Owners had goals, projects, and challenges. Victims had problems, hassles, and nightmares. Owners said they were busy, and victims said they were swamped. Owners were designing a life, while victims were trying to make a living. Owners were psyched and excited about changes, while victims were worried and ticked off. Owners looked to see what they could get from experiences, while victims just tried to get through it. Owners would plan things, and victims would wish things. This link I had seen between language and performance was interesting, but what was even more interesting was how people's lives would change once they began practicing using new language, end quote. There's a lot there to think about. As you grow chronologically older, are you speaking the language of a high achiever? Do you have goals, projects, and challenges related to your long-term health? Or do you have health or aging-related problems, hassles, and nightmares? Are you purposefully designing your life as a 70, 80, or 90-year-old? Or are you just trying to get by? Are you excited about menopause or retirement? Or are you worried and ticked off? Do you plan things? Or do you wish things? The exciting thing is that you can change your life by slowly starting to use new language. You can ditch the hassles, worry, and wishing in favor of goals, excitement, and concrete planning. You aren't at the effect of your life. You're co-creating your reality with your vocabulary and your actions. If you know me very well, you know I love lifting weights. I know that not everyone does, but it's one of the most enjoyable parts of my day. I like to have a good setup with a variety of plates. I love the struggle and the way you can watch the amount you can lift go up if you work at it. That's one of the best things ever, to be like, wow, I remember when trying to get 50 pounds over my head was crazy hard, and now 115 pounds is #NBD. I don't know why I said that. What am I talking about? That's not my vocabulary, but still, my internal language is positive. I even love being sore. It makes me happy. Steve Chandler says that high achievers see problems the way bodybuilders see weights. Yes, more resistance to build my strength with. It's hard, but it's rewarding. It feels good, and it's the very thing that gets me where I want to go. Victims, on the other hand, look at weights with horror. They only want to lift styrofoam. He says, the sad tragedy is that the same energy that could be going into problem solving is used by the victim for problem avoidance. It takes an ongoing mental effort to push problems out of the mind. It is real work to constantly redirect the spotlight of consciousness away from life so that it shines only on distractions. We either make ourselves miserable, said Brazilian sage Carlos Castaneda, or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same. End quote. Another thing Steve Chandler says is victims become passive when they can't find faith or confidence or courage to do something. Then they tell themselves they don't have the power to do it. Owners know that faith and courage only appear later, in reflection. Action comes first. Action comes before the courage to act. Faith and courage are rewards, not requirements for action. The power to do something often shows up halfway into the doing of the thing, not up front. Do the thing, says Ralph Waldo Emerson, and you shall have the power. End quote. Action generates courage, not the other way around. Faith is a reward for acting, not a prerequisite. So good. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you choose to use your vocabulary to your advantage as you age. You use words anyway, you might as well leverage them to give you a richer experience of life, more connection with your fellow humans, and to help you be an owner rather than a victim of time. We make meaning out of our life with the words we use to describe it, and we co-create our reality in the way we choose to take possession of it. I believe that our experiences as we age will be different if we describe them in empowering ways and see them as opportunities to become the stronger women we were destined to become. Next week, we're going to talk about your metabolism and what that even means. Until then, choose your words wisely and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.